Now, to understand how we're being played on this, we need to see the big picture, the big geopolitical picture. Of course, Wesley Clark clued us in on it, intentionally or unintentionally. He talked about the number of nations that they had planned to take down in the Middle East. Fleshing this out, talking about the players, talking about their goals, and talking about how we've seen this developing for quite some time. Joining us now is Joel Skousen. He is the chief editor and founder of World Affairs Brief. It's a weekly news analysis service. Of course, he is also an expert on preparedness. He's written Strategic Location. Where and how should you prepare when things really do hit the fan? And of course, that's always our concern as we see the increasing move towards not only globalism, but to establish that by creating chaos out of all that. So joining us now is Joel Skousen of joelskousen.com. Well, Joel, thank you for joining us. We've talked about the reactions of Putin, of Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey. We've talked about what the presidential candidates have said in the past about no-fly zones, how they're reacting to this. What's your immediate reaction to what happened today?
This is a dangerous move by Turkey because Russia certainly cannot let this stand as is. Now, they have moved a maritime missile ship into the coastal areas, claiming that they're going to defend the airspace against such incursions in the future. But I don't think that's going to hack it. It's too far away from where this happened. It would take too long for the missile to react to such a thing. I don't think anything's going to work for Russia except to put air defense aircraft up there as fighter defense, fighter cover for these attack aircraft. The Su-24 is a two-man crew, pilot and weapons officer. It's no match for the F-16. I have Air Force contacts who tell me that the Turkish pilots aren't that good. They don't do well, even though they're trained in the United States. But they're flying a top-of-the-line weapons platform. The missiles that the U.S. uses in its air-to-air engagements is top of the line. And so that's going to be tough for Russia to counter without a similar aircraft and missiles up there. And frankly, I think if this happens again, that's exactly what we're going to see.
Well, we've seen some of the more warmongering neocon candidates like Marco Rubio double down and say, Russia better not do anything because that would be an attack on a NATO country and we would be all in on that. So there we go. There's a reaction from the warmongering side. Well,
I don't think either side is ready for war yet. And yet Russia can get away with defending its aircraft in the area. As Justin Raimundo said, here's an aircraft who's bombing a terrorist target. I mean, there's no danger to Turkey. It wasn't an invasion of Turkey. What's going on? And Turkey claims, well, maybe we really didn't know it was a Russian aircraft. Of course, that isn't true. They know where all the U.S. aircraft are, and the only other aircraft are Syrian and Russian aircraft. They have shot down a Syrian attack fighter before, but clearly I think that they knew that this was Russian. There was a similar incursion a month ago, and they did warn Russia about that. I frankly am a little bit surprised because, Turkey really doesn't want to go up against Russia in a war situation. And it would take NATO a tremendous amount of time to get into a position where they could really defend Turkey should Russia go after them. I don't think it's going to amount to that, nor do I think it's going to get to World War III. But I think Russia's going to do something more than just station a missile ship off of the coast. As I say, I think we're going to see some Russian fighter aircraft flying fighter cover over this. And then the Turks, I think, are going to think twice about trying to shoot at one of these aircraft again.
Well, it's interesting, too, that you would say that because Putin's reaction was not, we're going to take a recrimination against Turkey. What he said was, we were stabbed in the back. That's the headlines that you're seeing everywhere. But we're stabbed in the back by people who are accomplices to terrorism. That's what you're not seeing in the headlines, accomplices to terrorism. And I think that's the point that Putin and the Russians have been making all along. We're there to do a job that you said that you wanted to do, but you're secretly arming, equipping, creating these terrorists.
Yes, and Turkey is the main puppet character for Russia, or for the United States in this. For example, The Guardian last week came out with an extensive article about how Turkey has been allowing all of this oil smuggling to come in through its border. That means that they're taking it to their marketing terminals. They're downloading the oil. They're marketing the oil for ISIS. This is a tremendous thing. The Guardian also pointed out that when they had captured, or when U.S. intelligence had gone in and captured one of the camps, ISIS camps in Raqqa, their headquarters, they found significant evidence of collusion directly between ISIS commanders and Turkish officials. And so it's even admitted by U.S. intelligence that there is collusion there. Now, that portion of U.S. intelligence has to be ignorant of the fact that the U.S. is, in fact, running the show. ISIS was a U.S.-British intelligence creation in order to get back into Syria after John Kerry's problematic remarks at a London press conference got a chemical weapons agreement offered to Syria, and Syria took it, and that stopped the fighting. It stopped the takedown of Syria that the U.S. was planning through a so-called no-fly zone 3 years ago. ISIS is, in fact, the reaction to that, an excuse to get back into it. And that's why the U.S. is not serious about taking down ISIS. The only reason that they attacked the oil convoys 2 days ago was because the Russians, Putin in the G20 meeting, showed satellite photos of all these depots and says, why aren't the U.S. attacking these things? Are they supporting terror? Of course they are.
Yes.
And the U.S. did an attack.
And of course, we played a clip earlier in the show from Ben Carson, where he was talking about reacting to this situation. And he said, what we have to do is we have to cut off ISIS's funding. So we need to use special forces to go in and shut down the oil fields. I mean, totally ignoring the fact that our NATO ally, Turkey, is the biggest customer of ISIS, just as you're pointing out. They got massive convoys. They're buying millions of dollars worth of oil a day from these ISIS oil fields. We can't even pick up the phone and tell our NATO ally to stop doing that. That's the blatant, in-your-face hypocrisy. And yet we have GOP candidates, along with Hillary Clinton, just playing along with all this as if ISIS isn't our creation, as if we're not funding them, as if we're not buying their products to keep them going.
You know, it's a very difficult subject for someone to broach the subject of a direct conspiracy of the United States to create a terrorist force. I mean, that is anathema to the media. It's anathema to any mainline or even conservative Republican candidates. They know they're going to get crucified if they try to make that statement.
Yes.
And there is a lot of evidence. I mean, look at the video evidence the Iraqis have of U.S. helicopters resupplying ISIS during the Battle of Mosul. Look at the videos of Apache helicopter accompanying a convoy of some 75 to 80 Toyota Hilux trucks. Now, of course, the U.S. will say, well, those were given to moderates and somehow they got into the hands of ISIS. But anybody who's buying that really needs to be in the market for the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah,
the moderates that we have videotaped today of shooting the parachuting pilots out of their crashing and burning plane, shouting Allah Akbar over their dead bodies, and then blowing up search and rescue helicopters with American-made missiles. Those are our moderate rebels that were helping there. I guess one of the things that really concerns me so much is the reactions. I'm more concerned about what we have seen from American presidential candidates than the reaction that we've seen from President Putin with all this, because they're the ones who are egging this on, pretending that this doesn't exist in the form that it does, but then offering us very dangerous prescriptions. As Ben Carson said, we're going to have to domestically, we're going to have to really ramp up the TSA. We're going to have to make sure the FBI has 24/7 surveillance on everybody. That's his prescription. And we're going to get more of that. We're going to get no-fly zones in the face of the Russians to trigger a real event between the U.S. and Russia that could trigger at some point in time World War III. That's, I think, the real danger, ignoring the cause of this and then offering these authoritarian empire-building prescriptions that are so detached from reality.
Well, that's one thing I'm very disturbed about. Even, people like Ted Cruz, who has got a legitimate conservative background going back decades, still has bought into the neocon agenda, unawares that it is a globalist agenda, that this is a phony war on terror.
Yes.
And it seems like the Republicans have to show who's going to be the strongest to stand up in the face of terror there. We're
going to break down really what's going on. And this is very important because I believe we can really turn this back, Joel. I think we did in 2013 when they had the sarin gas attack. We were told by the U.S. media and by the U.S. government that could have only come from the Syrian government. And nevertheless, as time went on and we talked about how this could possibly be a false flag, we started exposing this, even though the mainstream political candidates, mainstream press would not touch this. We eventually were able to say that, look, this could have come and possibly did come from the rebel forces that were there. We even had the U.S. military eventually weigh in on that and talk about that. So we turned that back once before. I think we can again if we expose this. Talk to us about the long-term interests of the U.S. and the globalists, why they're there.
It really has to do with Iran. And that's what your listeners really have to understand. The U.S., as a globalist agenda, was out to take down Iran starting in 2004, and Israel had been tasked to do that, to initiate the attack. Iran was expected then to retaliate against U.S. forces in the area, and that would then bring the U.S. into it. They didn't intend to occupy Iran, but they did intend to obliterate its military infrastructure. What's the reason? Iran is the only Muslim country that is actively attempting to be totally self-sufficient, building their own weapon systems, and the globalists can't allow that. They've always wanted the Arabs and the Muslims to be cannon fodder ever since World War II, Lawrence of Arabia, all the betrayal of the Arab promises that they made. They want the Arabs controlled and the Muslims controlled. And so that's the main target. But Israel, about 3 years ago, said to the U.S., look, we don't want to touch Iran until you get rid of Syria first, because Syria's got all this retaliatory missile capacity. And that's why the U.S. started to conjure up a no-fly zone like in Libya. It wasn't a real true no-fly zone. It was a cover, as it was in Libya, for cruise missiles going in, for special forces going in to accelerate and take down a nation. But as I said previously on the show, that got waylaid by a mistaken remark, an offhanded remark by Kerry at a London press conference when a reporter said, hey, is there any way that Syria can avoid this obvious attack? And Kerry just offhandedly said, yeah, they could give up their chemical weapons and we wouldn't attack. And wham, Syria said, we accept. And Russia said, we accept on behalf of Syria. And so Kerry must have really got a scolding when he got off the stage. You know, you fool, you just ruined our agenda. And that's why the U.S. and British intelligence had to create ISIS as an excuse for two reasons, not only to get back into Syria, but also to gin up the war on terror, to revitalize the war on terror. Everybody was getting tired of everyone claiming to be Al-Qaeda and never winning the war on terror. So they wanted a bigger, badder enemy, and that's what Al-Qaeda or ISIS became. Actually, what they did is simply go to about half of the rebels that they'd been training in Syria and said, okay, you're now ISIS. It was a name change, just like the name change to Free Syrian Army or the Syrian Democratic Army that just was formed 2 weeks ago. These are just name changes. This is not real.
It's the CIA's corporate merger, a company merger, right? Amongst these different forces, yeah.
But, you know, think about it. If Muslims were really trying to create a world caliphate, I mean, every single video that they've created has no other purpose but to create horror and revulsion against themselves. I mean, that's no way to start a Muslim caliphate. That's no way to rule the world, and everybody knows it. This is simply a propaganda film series, too high of video quality, by the way, for true terrorists. And incidentally, every one of these video confessions, whether it's the Paris attacks or all of the beheadings, every one of them comes through a government-connected website called Site, run by Rita Katz, an Israeli citizen. And it's clear. I mean, why would the terrorists, knowing what NSA powers are to track, try to contact a government-connected site to make all of their confessions? It's unexplainable, except for the fact that these are operatives working for U.S. and British intelligence.
Yes, and we know when we look at the different groups that have been brought in here. I mean, there was a New York Times article where they talked to one of the ISIS commanders, and he pointed out that he had been fighting the Russians in Chechnya as a surrogate for the CIA, and the CIA brought him into that area. I mean, it's an open secret. We see this so many times. We have the videos of the resupplies and dropping resupplies as they're fighting. So many different ways that we see this, and yet it's difficult to get the American public to really understand what's going on with this, just as it's difficult to get them to understand that there is the Arab community is not this monolithic entity any more than Islam is. So you've got these fighting factions of Islam who are fighting for control, and you've got different Arab groups, you've got different nation states. And I think it's very important for people to understand how involved the Saudis are with the CIA, how involved they are in this particular war. I think it's very interesting and telling, Joel, that we don't hear anything about what the Saudis are doing in Yemen. We don't hear any calls for relocating refugees from that area because there can't be any condemnation of Saudi Arabia's actions in invading Yemen.
In fact, Saudi Arabia is doing very poorly. They haven't been able to beat Yemen yet, and they've suffered some major defeats. It's also very telling that Israel, nor Saudis, nor the Bahrainis, nor the Qataris have received any attacks from ISIS. This is very clear indication that these people are viewed by ISIS as our benefactors. We don't attack our benefactors. Turkey has not received any attacks from ISIS. Only a two-way street in exchange of money, arms, and oil supplies.
And as you look at the map, you can see that ISIS looks like paint spilling out and melting down from northern Turkey down into Syria. I mean, it looks like an invasion coming from Syria if you look at the areas that they control. And of course, they're dripping down and controlling the other enemy of the Turks, and that is the Kurds there. Yeah.
Let me just go through the big picture, though, so that we can understand this. First of all, the globalist agenda in the Middle East is to take down Iran and all of its surrogates so that U.S. puppets controlled mostly by Israelis. And by the way, the Israelis are very much involved with this U.S. intelligence effort to create ISIS. They use Arab Israelis, some of the best trained spies in the world, by the Mossad to infiltrate and become leaders of most of these terrorist outfits. And that's how the command system works, from U.S. and British intelligence to the Israeli Mossad to the terrorist leaders. The individual terrorists don't know that their outfit is being run by the United States. But they do get warning before every one of these U.S. attacks. If it's on a building, clear out the building so the building is empty when it's attacked. If it's a training camp, the training camp is empty by the time it's attacked. And so you'll notice the French, the day after the Paris attacks, got all of their targeting from U.S. Sources. So they were basically an extension of the phony war on terror by the United States.
Yes, it's absolutely amazing. Even from the very first pictures that we had as they were rolling out the new brand of ISIS, and we saw them on the Toyota Hilux trucks. And I can remember Alex sitting here and said, why aren't they attacking them? I mean, taking them all out with one A-10. It's absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for joining us, Joel Skousen. We really have to fight this. We really have to understand what the big picture is here, or we are going to absolutely be helpless. We are going to see this used to take away every last bit of freedom that we have in this country. Thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you, David.
It is very important to restate what we began this broadcast with, and that is a simple statement, as Matt Drudge put out. Well, by the way, America has been arming ISIS for some time now. We need to understand that. We need to understand that Turkey has been funding ISIS by buying massive quantities of their oil, millions of dollars a day worth of oil from ISIS. If we don't understand that ISIS itself is a false flag like 9/11, then we are going to subject ourselves to the fear, the uncertainty that is going to be used to further subjugate us, to further destroy the rule of law and our rights as individuals. We will have a much broader, much deeper police state, just as Ben Carson was bragging about. That's his prescription. Of course, it's his prescription. He's being put up and promoted, just like Carly Fiorina. They're being put out there and promoted by Fox News because they toe the military-industrial complex party line even stronger than Fox News does. So they put them out there, even if they don't have a chance to win. They hope that they will move the debate in that direction, and of course they have. All of the GOP candidates, except for Rand Paul, and including Hillary Clinton, are all pushing for the fact that we have to go into this war. Well, that's it for tonight's news. Stay with us and track this as it develops. We've been telling you this for a long time. If you want to support our operation, please become a subscriber to Prison Planet TV. Your subscription, and you can do that for slightly over $5 a month just to try it out. If you want to get it for an entire year, that's less than $5 a month, but it helps to support our operation. Well, again, join us again tomorrow at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Shane Steiner's involvement with InfoWarsLife.com truly happened in an organic way. I went to high school with Shane. His brother knew his parents well, and he was visiting the office once, hadn't been to the office in years, and said, wow, I noticed you're making and selling supplements. Do these really work? Because I've tried a lot of supplements as a workout enthusiast, and I really think most of them are hype. And I said, here, take some home, try it. Well, a few weeks later, he came in blown away and said, I want to buy 3 boxes of this stuff to give my friends and family. It's simply amazing. He said, why does it work so well? And I said, listen, go to InfoWarsLife.com, watch the informational videos with Dr. Group and others. They understand how it all works. I know that it works for me. That's all I understand. The science, the facts, the research, people's testimonials, they're all on InfoWarsLife.com. You can check it out for yourself.
I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to push myself and work out harder, and that led to me being able to come out and do stuff like the barefooting and the surfing and stuff like that, which what I've never done. I never would have done that 2 years ago.
Shane has said over and over again, more than just libido and energy, it made him want to get into the gym more. It made him want to get in better shape. And believe me, the Steiners have amazing genetics. His brother is a world champion steer wrestler. His dad, Bobby Steiner, is a famous world champion bull rider. They've got natural genetics. But when you added this to the mix, in Shane's own words, it took him to the next level. Shane noticed the mental clarity. Bobby was able to work out longer and gain muscle mass. He's already completely shredded. I gotta admit, for me, the biggest effect has been libido. Now, I've never claimed to have a body like some beach model, but back when I was 20, 22 years old and worked out every day, I looked great. But over the years, and being married, having 3 kids, and working 18 hours a day, I gained basically 100 pounds. And it's been a long process losing that weight in the last 4 years. But if you look at the photos and the videos of what I looked like 4 or 5 years ago versus today, the results are dramatic. I'd already cleaned up my diet, I was working out hard, but I'd only lost about 20 pounds. It was adding the other key ingredients from InfoWarsLife.com that helped me personally go to the next level and shed another 35 pounds.
This has actually made me feel so good that here lately, about a year ago, I started training jiu-jitsu, and that kind of led to doing some boxing and kickboxing. I mean, it's amazing that 2 years ago, I was on the couch and couldn't even tie my shoes, and now I'm training with MMA fighters and just doing stuff that I never thought that I would be doing ever again. So Super Male Vitality has allowed me to do some amazing things, and if it has those kind of effects for me, I know that it will do great things for you. So just try Super Male Vitality. I promise you, you'll love it.
And finally, let's look at Anthony Gucciardi, Infowars.com reporter. He also works with Dr. Group and others, helping develop the newest, most cutting-edge, high-quality supplements. Let's take a look at what happened when he tried to barefoot ski for the first time with the Steiners. And remember, we're not making fun of him. He had the will to get in the arena, and he's lost more than 10 pounds in the last few years of fat and gained more than 10 pounds of muscle. And Anthony chalks it up to Super Male Vitality as well. Bottom line, folks, you want to discover the power of Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality for yourself by visiting InfoWarsLife.com today or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.